Yeah, your connection just started for a bit, but you're
Let's see,
good
hang
now, I think.
on. Yeah, I think the signal is just starting to catch, basically. Let's see here. Hang on. All right, let's see. Zoom. Okay, I think we're okay. Let me check it on the phone. We should be all right. Let's see. Boom. Boom. All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, it's no good. Hang on. There it goes. Yeah, we're all right. For some reason, it didn't have a title. That's funny. All right, hang on. Let me check on YouTube. Let me just check that. Hang on. Let's see. I can go back and change it. Yeah, it's not showing the title, but I'll go change it. Mm. Mhm. Yeah, we're all right. All right, it's working. I'll have to go back and change the title though. Let's see. Let
Okay,
me see if I
I'm just
can. Let me
gonna
see.
choose a background image.
Yeah, choose the background. We're live, so be careful what you say.
Oh, we are live.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
live. Let's see. Let me see if I can fix this. For some reason, it didn't show the name, but well, I'll do it after the show. Do that. So you're Australian, right?
No,
Are you
I was
from
born and raised in New Zealand. Yeah,
okay, so
that's
you're born
life.
and raised in New Zealand, but you're living in Australia and you happen to be visiting New Zealand now, right?
Yeah, my older brother is getting married tomorrow, so
Oh,
it's
that's
a
cool.
big celebration happening.
Oh wow.
And I disappeared, but my video. Oh, there I am.
There you go. What happened?
Um,
What's going on here?
yeah, so I'm here in New Zealand. Yeah, my brother's getting married, so there's like 120 people showing up here tomorrow, and it's going to be a magical celebration. I got like
Oh,
dozens of cousins and aunties and uncles, and my brother's fiance's family too. So it's going to be cool. We're in the mountains in the South Island, about half an
uh-huh.
hour north of Queenstown. It's really beautiful here.
Let's see here. Okay. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, for some reason it didn't show up. I don't know. I'm still trying to get used to the software changes of the last year since I took a hiatus. But right now we're showing it's live January 31, which is true where you're at, but not where I'm at.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, we can go with it. So, I'm having trouble with the signal, and I don't know if it's me. I think it's collective. You know what I mean? Like it's bigger than the issues I'm having here. So that I got to, yeah, I was looking at the message. Can you send me a or link? And I forgot that I went on your platform, right? Can
Yeah,
you hear
yeah.
me?
I can
Okay.
hear you, but it's pretty yeah, it's coming and going.
Oh, I wonder what it is. Is that me or you? Do you have good signal?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's I haven't had any issues here. I've only been here a few days, but I don't know, am I coming through fine for you?
Yeah, but I think I'm not coming in so good for you. I can't really tell. And I can't tell if it's actually going out there because nobody's actually in here, which is strange. It's got to be on one end or the other. I got full bars though. Hmm. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you at the moment.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll give it a shot. To record. coordinates. So we'll pick it up anyway. So you're also A.O. Henry. I didn't know that. I did that. I got to, is this going to work? Hmm. Hmm.
Has anyone commented about hearing you or not?
I don't know. Let's see here. Can you guys hear us out there? You know what I think it is? I think it's delayed quite a bit. I'm showing a few people coming into the room now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking at the words and it's a few minutes behind, or at least a minute or two.
let's see.
Has anyone commented about hearing you or not?
Yeah, there it goes. There's the lag. Okay. I don't know. I Matrix and all its virtues. Okay, Allison Clausen says she can hear us.
Cool.
That's good enough for me. Yeah, I think what it is, I think there's just a little bit of a delay. Once it gets started, it's okay. So, man, how old are you? How old are you?
Yeah,
20?
28. Yeah.
28. Okay. Yeah. So, one thing I noticed, I put this post up. I mean, when I stopped uh, doing the old show, somewhere right after that, you hit me up and you're like, let's do something together. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But there was this whole unraveling happening, not just for me, but I think for everybody. It's probably a year ago, maybe 8 months or something. And then I was like, hey, I'm gonna come back on. I'll give you a holler when I come back on. But about 2 or 3 days ago, I got this epiphany to put something out saying, hey, who wants to have a transparent conversation? And I got all these responses. And one of the things that's cool is I received quite a few responses from people like in their 20s, and I would say probably their 30s, early 30s. So I think there's this uh, coming out that's occurring with the younger people because for years and years and years, it was 45 and over, like in these groups. So I'm just kind of curious, like, when do you feel like you officially caught on to what was happening or something was different or everything changed for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I listened to the second guest you had, I forget his name, on your new show, and he was saying how he's always been awake, and it gets me thinking to like there's a lot of things that I was aware of as a child growing up that others weren't and stuff. But it wasn't really for me until I was 20 years old. And 2016, I went down to, I was living in Mexico learning Spanish and stuff. And
Oh,
I
really?
went down and
What?
went down and did some woofing and near Playa del Carmen in an eco village called Sac Bay with the cenotes and all these natural buildings out of adobe with thatched roofs and stuff. And I met this brother Gerardo who he just knew everything about everything, and he put it all together for me. And we were doing permaculture gardening every day for 4 hours and swimming in the cenotes and talking about, the things that are more real than what I'd been around in my environment, because like I think I was 14 or 15 years old at boarding school, and my friend showed me videos about 9/11 and the
Really?
Illuminati and the satanic rituals and stuff. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with that information, But I
Okay.
started traveling when I was 18, and I met more people on sailboats and stuff that had this information. But it wasn't really until I met Gerardo and saw someone that had kind of made sense of everything and gone to live with the land and create beautiful things for others to come back to nature, but show them the way, so to speak. And once that happened, my whole life changed. I remember asking Gerardo the next morning after he showed me like the Zeitgeist movie, the third
Oh my
one.
God.
I was like, man, like, how do you like still talk to all your friends and stuff after knowing all this? And he's like, I don't have that many friends, man. Like, I don't need too many.
So
I
how
got my
how
plants, got my
how
girlfriend.
how
Yeah.
old were you when you came to Mexico and you met this guy?
I just turned 20. Yeah, it was like 2 days after my 20th birthday. I met Gerardo. Yeah.
So this is like 8 years ago. So seven,
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So that put us like at 2017,
It was
2016,
2016
17.
April. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Wow. And so up to that point, now what brought you to Mexico? Were you just like traveling the world, or you got a wild
I'm
hair? Or,
really grateful to be able to tell my story because it's hard for me to know where to start.
hmm.
But yeah, so what brought me to Mexico was I was working on like sailboats and stuff at 18 and super yachts in France and then I just realized that I don't want to do this. I kept seeing plastic in the marinas and just like the whole working as a glorified slave for billionaires just didn't quite feel right. And so I went back to New Zealand and went to university to study biodiversity because I decided I was passionate about the environment. And at university, I met these exchange students that were all studying in Mexico. And we became good friends. And Mexico just sounded like so much more fun than living in New Zealand at the cost of things and everything. And so I just went over to Mexico with them at the start of 2016. And left university and just started studying Spanish classes. And we had a flat kind of situation, the three of us living together. And
What part of Mexico were you in?
I started in Querétaro, like 3 hours north of Mexico City or so. And then
Okay.
once I finished, like, I think 2 months of Spanish classes, I went online and looked at woofing and wanted to see more of the country and not spend crazy amounts of money. And so I went down and spent about 5 or 6 weeks with Gerardo. And then I went back up to Querétaro and with my friend Laura, who became my girlfriend,
Oh
we
yeah.
traveled we traveled overland from Querétaro through all of Mexico, like a bunch of states, all the way down to Costa Rica, just
Did you
taking like hitchhiking and taking public buses, like
oh
little
my God.
minivans.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's crazy. Fear and Loathing in Mexico.
Say that
Like
again?
that movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas
Oh
about
no, I
Hunter
don't actually.
Thompson. Oh yeah, with Johnny Depp. The true story about Hunter Thompson. Uh yeah, I was just making that comparison. Did you get down to Puerto Vallarta?
No, I think I missed that part of the coast. I think on the
Okay.
coast we got to Puerto Escondido and then
Oh
went
yeah, so
further
that
south
that's
from there.
south of me. I'm in Puerto Vallarta. That's south of me, Puerto Escondido. That's pretty far
Okay.
down there. That's close to the what is that, the Honduras border or Guatemala border?
Guatemala, yeah.
Yeah. So you're 20 years old. You're going to university. You meet some people. They're talking Mexico. You're like, fuck it, I'm going. At this
hmm
point, 2016, at this point, are you resonating or even familiar with or even thinking about the word ascension and some of the stuff that,
Oh,
that's
no, like my family's like atheist, so I love them, they're amazing people, but that's their view on things. And so I always had my own relationship with like synchronicities and receiving, signs or communication, but it was very sporadic because of the environment I was in. So it wasn't really until I met Gerardo that I learned that Atlantis is real and all these other different dimensions of life. And so I started buying books and, reading things from like Lobsang Rampa and Martin Prichtel, a Mayan shaman and stuff like that.
well. So how did you get hooked up with this Geraldo guy?
Through woofing. Woofing's like I think it stands for willing
Yeah,
workers on organic farms. Yeah, so he just
right.
had an ad up there,
Yeah.
and
Was he an old guy or what?
uh yeah, he was like just a few
My
years
age.
older than me. I think he was like 33 when I met
Oh, I
him.
see. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, but the craziest thing was like he ended up passing over. Like he was like became my best friend, and
Really?
maybe 4 or 5 months after we met, he just something crazy happened one night. He just like woke up with like a crazy sickness or migraine, and like this dude was one of the healthiest guys I ever knew. He had been the Mexican Muay Thai champ at every single weight level, like and
No kidding.
which is kickboxing. And yeah, one night he just woke up super sick. He told his partner, Elissa, I think I'm gonna die. And like 2 weeks later, he was up in Guadalajara where I had moved because my partner at the time was finishing her last semester up there. And
Okay.
I saw him in hospital. He just looked like he was going to go the next day. And then a few days later, I saw him
Hmm.
again, and he was like alive. Like we were talking about going to his uncle's farm and drinking coconuts and eating mangoes off the trees. And then that night he had a brain aneurysm and passed over. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
God, that's crazy. So I'm in Jalisco, which is where Guadalajara is the
Yeah,
capital. So of
yeah,
Port of Arts is part of Jalisco. I'm actually in Nayarit, which is right over the border, in a
right.
small town called Bucerias. So that's crazy, man. You're like 20, 21 years old, and you meet this guy. It sounds like almost like Carlos Castaneda, the teachings of Don Juan, and all those
Yeah, in
books.
a lot of ways. Like the last time I saw him, he told me he'd had a dream and he was visiting himself in hospital with like one of his past life selves, and he was like this Indian and like mind chief, right? And the
Mm,
mind chief version of him turns to him and says, while they're looking at his body in the hospital bed, you've fought many battles. You've always fought battles for the good of the people. And this is
right.
just a different battle that you're fighting, and you're not gonna lose. And when he told me that, I was like, oh, cool. He's gonna get well real soon. But it wasn't that way. Yeah.
So did you have any idea? I guess you would only know, like it sounds like he introduced just a whole bunch of stuff to you. Did you feel like it was like preordained, or when you met him, you're like, oh man, I know this guy.
Yeah, definitely. Like it started with his partner Lisa picked me up in this little pueblo outside of the eco village one day, or the first day I arrived. And when I saw her, I was like, I know you, like, and I'd never had that before, like,
Mm,
really. And then when I met Gerardo, it was the same thing. He was a bit more like cagey at first, like, because of some of the things he's been through, and he's not so confident with his English. But
mm.
yeah, after a couple days, like we were just yeah best friends. Like, I remember just him showing me things in the garden. I'd never grown food before, and just
Mm.
watching tomatoes like flower and like the thing just growing every day, and you're building like a little house for it, so it can just keep climbing. And I was all of a sudden passionate about growing food. Yeah.
So you spent what, a couple of years in Mexico?
Collectively, yeah, I think so. Because back in 2020, I was in Baja again for like 6 months, and yeah, I don't know how many times I've been, but probably altogether a year and a half or so in Mexico. Yeah.
So did you have any, and again, you're like 21 when this is happening. And then if you went back in 2020, you would have been like 24 or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, did you have anything like, let's say, like of a psychic phenomena, like out on the land or working on the organic farm or just in Mexico in general and hanging out with a guy like him and his gal? Did you have stuff go down? Did you and or plant medicine ceremonies, that type of thing?
Yeah, I guess like for me, it all just became a one big dream. Like when you're traveling and just meeting people, you hear information, you go to that place, and it's like, it's just constant information. Or I would receive things out of dreams and follow that in the physical reality. Um, yeah, it's interesting for me, like, because I guess I could say like when I was 21 in Costa Rica, I did go and experience ayahuasca, and it was so interesting because like my intention was to just have a spiritual experience. I heard about all these people having these far out like out of body travels and all this, and I hadn't really experienced it myself. And so I go in there and I'd only eaten like fruit for like 2 or 3 months, and
Really?
I'd fasted for a couple days, and she just like, oh man, I had the most amazing experience. I could write a whole book about it. But despite all the magical sacred geometry, and it was like all of my each cell in my body had eyes, and I could like see just like everything moving in this magical harmony with the music and the medicine. And but also what she really showed me was that my imagination is as real as anything. And so now I realize that any spiritual or out of body experience starts with my imagination, which is kind of constant throughout the day, unless I'm doing something really intense, where I'm totally in my body. And even then, when I'm doing something really intense, like I love doing qigong and running and dancing, going to the gym and stuff. And when I'm really in my body, it's like you can you can like call in like parts of your soul or your light or your aura that aren't yet in physical reality, and you can just like send them there and create more matter within your body by activating certain muscles with the tension and connection. So yeah.
Damn. And did he teach you to do that, or somebody teach you to do that, or did you develop by on your own?
Yeah, I think it was on my own. Like I got so into health, pretty young. Like when I was like right before I took ayahuasca, I decided I was going to only eat fruit for whatever period of time. It lasted a good 6 months or so, and it's been probably the base of my diet ever since. And then I started getting into qigong around 2019 or something, 2018. And so yeah, it's all about breath and movement together. And so once you start to feel the expansion and the contraction and lengthening, strengthening, it just yeah, it became automatic, I guess.
So 2020 comes, now you're 24-ish, COVID hits. You're in Mexico for 6 months,
Yeah, I was in Baja
in
until I think
the
June.
Baja,
Yeah.
and 2020.
Yeah, I was in Baja until June. Yeah, and then I think I drove across, I hitchhiked and drove
So
across the
you're
states.
you're in the Baja till like the first half of 2020 as COVID anchoring.
I guess,
Right.
yeah. I mean, it's a whole situation that was going on there,
Man,
but I
right
was
where I'm at, I'm on this highway.
sorry. Go ahead,
There's a
Todd.
lag.
You're
Keep
on this
going.
highway. No, you go ahead. What were you saying?
There's a lag. It's yeah. Okay. It may catch up. It may align. Uh, no, I'm right here on this Highway 200, which is in Jalisco, in Guadalajara's state, and it runs on the coast, on the western coast. And I'm right next door to like a convenience store, and they'll have buses stop there. But most days when I walk out there, there's one or two people hitchhiking. I can't even imagine what would possess you. I mean, I've got balls, but I don't even know if I would hitchhike in Mexico. And you're hitchhiking in the middle of really the beginning of COVID, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
In
it didn't.
Mexico.
No, I was hitchhiking in the US. Yeah, I went up to San Diego and I hitchhiked from
Okay.
there all the way to Sedona. And then
did anybody, oh, this lag is horrible. Did anybody tell you that hitchhiking's illegal in the US?
I think someone might have, but a lot of people were warning me about the virus and
Yeah,
I mean, there was one point where
yeah, yeah.
I think I was in Arizona, whatever state's next to California, and I was in the desert and I was on the side of the road in like the crazy hot summer sun, like over 100 degrees. There was no shade. And I
That's
remember just like passing out, like so dehydrated and overheated. And but yeah, once I got to Sedona, I ended up getting a hold of a vehicle and driving across the states and got to hang out with my friend Cornelius, who's one of the most amazing humans I've met. And I've been all around the world. I've been to like 6 continents and I don't know how many countries. And
man, that's crazy.
we got to play music. And I'm actually starting a podcast with Cornelius. He's
Yeah.
into children's education in the forest, gardening, qigong. He's one of the best musicians I ever met, and so we got to hang out. And then I went to Hawaii after that, and during COVID. Yeah,
Damn, we've been in the same spots. It's crazy. What island were you on in Hawaii?
I was on Kauai in 2020. Yeah,
That's where I was. In
yeah, I remember.
2020, in 2020 you were there? No,
Yeah, in
you
August.
just missed
Yeah,
me in Morgan because I left in 2019 August. So I was there 2018, 2019. Dude, you've had a pretty full life in 28 years, or really in 8 years.
yeah, it's nonstop. Hey, like I've been to back and forth to Europe a bit. I've been to South America. Was in the Caribbean as an 18-year-old on sailboats, and Yeah, now I'm
So
trying now God's got me staying in one spot. I haven't left. I
how'd you,
stayed in Australia for 6 months and I'm just
oh,
having a little trip home now.
so you're temporarily in Australia now, you
No,
would
it's
say.
like a home base now. Like I've
Okay.
never had one, but I finally
Okay.
got my own place for
Oh yeah.
the first time. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So where you at in Queensland?
I'm living in Queensland up north of Cairns, yeah, near Port Douglas.
Oh, you're
And
way up. You're way up
and,
north.
and the rainforest. Yeah, yeah, with the coconuts and everything. I climb coconut trees and share coconuts with people.
You're up
And
there with the almost with the crocodiles.
yeah, yeah, there's lots of crocs around. Yeah.
That's
But they're
crazy.
cool. They just have their territory, we just respect that. But
I
yeah,
don't
I'm
know,
in
man.
Queenstown right now in New Zealand in the South
Mm,
Island, but
Queenstown.
just for 10 days, yeah.
I'm not very familiar with New Zealand. I just know that it's, well, I guess similar to Australia. I pick it up in Mexico too. Certainly Sedona, Kauai, other places seem to carry an air of, I don't know, the ancient
Hmm.
coding, portal, high energy, um, multi-dimensional highway, that type of, you can run into a lot of different things. I'm curious as in like, in your travels, like what are the wildest things that have happened? Uh,
Mm.
like say from a psychic phenomena perspective. Like, have you seen anything? Have you sensed anything? Have you had any weird experiences?
Yeah, one that comes to mind is like I ended up in New York City at one point. I think it would have been 2022 or something. And I was just busking. Like I didn't plan. I was going to Cornelius, right? From I was in near Boston, Massachusetts, Springfield, and I was
Hmm.
going down to see him in Maryland, and he booked me a bus ticket from New York to Maryland, and I got to New York, and the bus ticket was for like the following day or like something like 24 hours or 12 hours later. And so I just walked out of the bus station right downtown New York City, and this guy gives me $10 and some food, and we start having a jam. I was playing flutes and he was on a piano in the bus terminal. And then I walk out of the city and I ended up just like busking and meeting people all night, and I stayed up and fell asleep as the sun came up in Central Park, and ended up missing my bus and just staying in New York City for a week. And so I was just like sleeping in Central Park. I found like a spot one night where it was really beautiful and went to sleep, go lie down there. And I woke up in the morning and it turns out it was like an eco reserve part of the park, and it was closed from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So no one bothered me there. And and then the next night I go to lie down to go to sleep like 2 or 3 a.m. or something, and I kind of look up through the trees, and there was this glowing like lyran, feline being maybe 40 meters away from me, kind of like these colors behind me here. And it had the shape of a cat, and it was like it was glowing. It was not really physical. It was light,
Right.
and it was just moving towards me and towards me and towards me. And I remember having a conversation with it, but I should have written down, what I received. It was a few years ago now, but that was
Hmm.
pretty amazing. Like it was just like it was so relaxing because I walked around the park that night. I was feeding raccoons like pistachios or something, and then it almost had like a raccoon feline kind of look to it, and it was just so friendly but really powerful, and just like and because all of New York City, the whole island is a tick-tite. I don't know if you know that, which is like means it's from outer space. So there's this really
Now say that again.
powerful
Say that again.
extra.
I spent like 4 or 5 months there, but way back, like in 2016 when I started living out of a suitcase. I went there, and that was really interesting. What did you refer to it as? Because it is, like I had spent the first 5 years, I guess you would say, of my awakening in nature, and a lot of time in nature, a lot of time alone in nature, and having different experiences. And then I go to New York City, and there wasn't any trees. You know what I mean? It's like it was a whole different. thing, and it really taught me a lot as far as energy goes. Like what's
Right.
natural, what, people would say this is AI or this is a natural, this is good or this is bad. And I'm like, in New York City, I felt the soul of New York City, riding the subways, almost like integrating with all points of dark and light, without judgment, et cetera, et cetera. But I've never
Hmm.
heard anybody say what you said. Now, can you repeat that? You said New York City is a TikTok. Is that what you call it?
Tick tight, which it's like a kind of rock from outer space. Like I don't know if you've seen people that collect stones, but if they have a black one that looks kind of like a meteorite or something, it's called a tick-tite. But like moldavite is also a
Okay.
tick-tite, even though it's green because it comes
Okay.
from outer space. Yeah. And I
So
honestly
you're
forget where I got
saying,
that information
so
from, but I just
you're
know it to be true.
saying New York City as a whole,
Well, that island, is it called
right?
Long Island or whatever the island is called?
Manhattan. Yeah. Well,
Manhattan.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's Manhattan. It's Long Island. Yeah. But I mean, I get what you're saying. Like it's almost like metaphorical what you're saying, but there's a validity to it. There's something about that place. Like I
Is it?
remember I was living in the Bronx, and I had a few, I had quite a few things happen, during the 4 or 5 months I was there. And one night I was coming home and it was probably like, I don't know, like maybe 11 o'clock, at night. And I'm walking in this neighborhood, which was like World War II apartment buildings, old buildings. Uh, and and I'd been staying in this place and gone there, I don't know, 50 times, 70 times. And I go to the place, enter the common area of the apartment building, go up 2 or 3 flights of stairs to where I was staying. And as I'm getting approaching the door on the third level, I start to look around and notice that everything looks like it's about 60, 70, 80 years older than what I remembered. And so I go to the door and it has the door number. It was like 3E or something like that. And as I'm about to knock, I'm like, man, something doesn't feel right. And I still can't, thoroughly explain it, but to me, what happened was I went in, I was in a different time in this building, conscious and looking around and seeing things that don't add up. And I ended up walking back outside, walking on the street, and I guess it came back, but it was weird. It was like walking into like into a portal where you just stepped into a different time and place. But yeah, I picked up there's definitely it's definitely a huge vortex of some sort. There's no question. Like just the fact that it contains the energies, not just of whatever it is, 25, 30 million people, but it contains all this kind of like Sedona, but on a much bigger
Hmm.
scale. So I never heard anybody refer to it that way. And I guess every place has its multidimensional attributes. Um, have you ever gotten in your travels? Have you ever, and you talked about that, the delirium, the force of it, the power of it, not necessarily bad, just something very, very otherworldly or eerie, or you know what I mean? Have you ever gotten yourself in a situation or an encounter where you were like, man, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but I think that was yeah, I mean quite a few, but like I guess like that's how my relationship with God started as a as a teenager or whatever, I would just be like,
oh,
like if there is a God, like what the fuck is going on here?
right?
Something's got to change, and like the next day, like something pops up, and all of a sudden going to boarding school, and I'm like, hallelujah, I'm in the forest for half the year, so that was cool. But yeah, so lots of little things where like because it's been interesting for me because I'm so sensitive to energy and I know innately, what I might need to function better so that I can be of service in a more, productive, way, according to, my gifts, my energy or whatever. that when I realize a situation is not, supporting me to do what I'm here to do in whatever situation, I'll just kind of like be like, okay, what can I do? Da, 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 what are the options? And I'll just like ask people around me, or I don't know, things just come together kind of
Mm.
fast. And but usually it's like, yeah, I don't have to think. It's like usually the opportunities come up before I have to think about it too much. And then if I have made like a wrong decision, very quickly, like I can realize like, oh yeah, this is what I need to do now. Yeah. Like one example would be like when I was in Kauai and didn't want to leave. I love Kauai and everything, but I had a temporary green card at one point, and it had expired, and I had like 6 months to leave. And after it expired, I was told, right? So like a few days before then, I um I had planned to go to Portugal, and then as I'm about to go to Portugal, I end up on like a Telegram call with some, brothers around the world, and two of them are about to go to Ireland and go around all the stone circles, and this was
Mm.
2022 or 2023, and I was like, I want to do that because my grandparents are Irish. I have an Irish passport, and I'd never been there. So I meet them in England. We go to Ireland. We go around all the stone circles, and every time I would stand in one of these things, I was just like a column of light, all these like aquamarine and emerald green colors, and it's just like going straight up to the heavens, and I could see all these Pleiadian beings and angels around us, and then, but we were like camping in the wet and cold Irish spring, like it was freezing, coming from Hawaii. And but eventually, after like a week, we got to Derry, and in the north of Ireland, and we go to these people's house that my friends had connected with, and this guy, it was like just warm and dry. I just laid down on the floor, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like so relaxed, like never before. And then this guy Noel was complaining about cluster headaches. It's this crazy migraines that just go on and on and on and on and super painful. And he said he'd had them for like 5 years, and he hadn't slept properly for 2 years. And so I was like, well, let me see what I can do, because I know that I've got this like gift with touch and healing. And so I started rubbing his head and his neck, and I found this like ball of energy locked in his neck. And after just a few minutes, I just like felt it disappear. Like this was just like condensed light stuck in one place, and all of a sudden it had just dispersed throughout the body. And he was like, "Well, that feels better." And then he told me afterwards he had had a dream that morning, and he hadn't dreamed in years, that some blonde fella was standing behind him, rubbing his neck,
Isn't
and
that
then he got
crazy?
rid of the pain of his headaches. And then he actually slept through the night and didn't get headaches for a couple of years. I think they came back once or twice, but only briefly, and he took care of it himself. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, Henry Draper, 28 years old, for the last 8 years, been on 6 continents, had basically operating in the flow, you know, uh,
Hmm.
following the synchronicities, spontaneous action. You go full circle. You're in Australia. What's your take on all this? Not just with you personally, but also how your journey relates to the collective evolution or the collective awareness or expansion.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. Like, I've actually used astrology as a good tool in the last year. I've met this amazing astrologer in Australia who I plan on doing some cool projects with. And I guess for me, it's like help me see like, oh yeah, these are my gifts and these are my challenges, and like, oh, that'll make sense and that'll make sense. And so I've got all this experience. I've met so many amazing people around the world, and but it's like I've had my playtime, like kind of going with the flow, and it's like I'm starting to ground in a more masculine energy, and like be like
Hmm.
create my own project or co-create a project, but instead of just like flowing around so much. And so it's like, yeah, I've got all this experience. I've met so many people, and I've seen so many cultures, from like the happiest people living in mud huts and indigenous cultures to the richest people complaining about the silliest shit,
Isn't that crazy?
and also happy rich people and sad poor people, like all these contrasts and all these different religions. And I just see the look for the beauty in everything, and that everybody can teach me something, because we're all unique and we're all God and we're all fractals of source. And it's supposed to be this big party and dance of life and light and love. And so I guess, yeah, I'm starting to see how I can put it all of my experience together into creating something to where I can share with others how to live like a harmonious lifestyle, you know. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I tend to hang around with, the more conscious people I can find anywhere I've been. But recently, I've been meeting, lots of tourists and, people that aren't so focused on organic gardening or
Mm.
self-care and ascension or whatever you want to call these things. And it's just been really interesting to watch people appreciate my energy for like the most simplest things that, were either innate or somebody taught me a long time ago and just seemed
Mm.
like common sense. So yeah, I think we're going forward. I want to create a magical project where people can come and be with the earth. And that seems like what lots of people want to be doing. And I think that it's becoming more and more available. Like, for example, where I'm living up near Port Douglas, most of the farms are growing sugarcane. And sugarcane in Australia is the most subsidized industry in the world. It's like the most unsustainable thing ever. The government's just pouring billions of dollars into it every year because they can't compete with the prices in India and Brazil. But they don't want the sugarcane farmers to have nothing to grow, and so they just keep giving them money, right? But the sugarcane mill in Mossman, the nearest town, closed down. And so the sugarcane farmers are either selling their land or they're starting to grow, real food. And so yeah, I think people are actually interested all of a sudden, like what can we do with our land and how can we live with the earth? And more people becoming health conscious because more and more people getting sick, like um hearing my parents telling so many stories of their friends in their 50s and 60s getting all these terrible illnesses. And so yeah, it's an interesting time. I forget what your question is.
No, oh, hang on. No, I mean, I was just saying, like, with everything, well, it's kind of just one question after another, but I mean, like in digging, you're 28, and these communities, such as like Soulogy, you say you go back to 2012, they've been predominantly 45 and over, and the vast majority of that demographic has been females. And I remember about 3 years ago, and I would say that would be like, 45 and up would be like 90 plus percent. And 35 to 45 in the early days would be like another, eight per, the second category. 18 to 25, nothing. And I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, that demographic started to take off, and it was the males as opposed to the females. And I started to see, some changes. And we see that now, even like with, someone like you. One of my questions would be how many people, like say in the last 2 or 3 years, even up to today, do you know that are seeing things uh, the way you're seeing them and they're on or about your age? Are they mostly older?
I think now there's a lot more my age, like on my travels, I would say that 60, 70, 80% of the people I've met and hung out with were older than me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the ones I really keep in touch with the most are more around my age. And in Australia, where I'm living, I only have, a couple of friends that are older than me, and the rest are around my age. So
Hmm.
yeah, and it's like I said, like I can learn something from everyone, and especially like people that have lived in Australia or that area for longer, they have so much knowledge of the weather and the land and the topography and the animals, and having that knowledge, they're just so grounded and they can see the interdimensional reality of the relationships with all these different parts of the earth. So it's pretty
Wow.
amazing, to see the indigenous people walking around and they're just like they're so in tune, to where they don't really worry about anything because they know how to live with the land so simply, and it makes them really friendly, and they have a lot of depth with their culture too. Yeah.
So, I mean, were your parents hippies?
Oh no, my parents are business people. Yeah, they
Yeah.
love nature. They love nature. Like we spend a
Yeah.
lot of time going to the beach and going out on boats, walking through the bush and all that. That was like all I could think about at school as a teenager was when am I going to the beach next? And I bought a little inflatable boat when I was 14 and explored, around the coastline with that with my friends. And
Wow.
but yeah, my parents love nature, but no, it's been pretty traumatizing for my parents, a lot of what I've been through. And a lot of it, I've skipped over like some of the stupid decisions I've made, but the pain allows us for deeper growth. I was thinking
Sure.
about this last night. It's like when we experience like a new high in terms of level of consciousness or being, um, it's like life is like strips all of the external support we have that is like sustaining us and being there or helped us get there so that we can create that as a base without needing any support, and then all of a sudden we can decide which tools we want to bring back into our life and support or whatever, and then we can go even higher again. So that's what I
So,
was doing most of last year, just like rebuilding it without any support, yeah, or much.
so
Yeah.
you mentioned the word innate, uh, and then, that common thread that you had from the beginning. But what have been, because a lot of the people that I've talked to over the years, including me, had like traumatic experiences or successive traumas or dark nights of the soul where they, and obviously because they were in a different generation, there were, you know, things, within their let's just say their local experience, family, kids, parents, siblings, jobs, all these attributes of uh, that basically come to the surface when you're affixed to the old system or the you want to call it the matrix or whatever. What for someone like you, 28 years old, um, what were there any catalysts? I mean, what were the major catalysts? What have been the biggest influences in your development beyond you?
Well, it's got to be God, and it
Mm,
took me some years to realize, to fully like understand the all-encompassing nature of God and my relationship with it.
mm,
But yeah, it's like I said, even as a teenager, there were times where I was like proper depressed, like,
mm,
and I remember like I must have been 14, and I honestly don't remember too much what made me so depressed, other than just like being super emotionally sensitive and not really having any way of communicating. It's like I would just take on other people's pain, or like I would just like see other people as sad and be like, oh, well, I guess I'm supposed to be sad too. That's how everybody is. And at one point, I texted a girl, like I was 14, that I was feeling suicidal or something. And she reckons she was hanging out with some guys I went to school with, and one of them read the text. And this guy
mm.
starts mocking me at school on the Monday, that I was depressed. And I was like, you're a dick, man. And so I had all these tramadol pills because I had snapped my ACL. It's like some kind of amphetamine, and I just took them all. There's like, I don't know how many there were. And it was like in the morning, and I was at school just like feeling super crook. And the teacher just says, look, you should go to the infirmary. And I'm walking across the grass to the infirmary, it's like 100 meters or so. And I just collapsed and vomited and kind of passed out. And then you get into this like rebirth. It's like, okay, well, this isn't, something's not working. So something's got to change. And I got to move schools and go to a forest school for half of a year where we only did 3 classes a day, and we were running through the forest and building tracks and doing rock climbing and caving and building fires and running half marathons and all kinds of stuff. And so that was great. I got to see, like the teachers and the outdoor instructors were the same people, and we lived in little houses with 8 kids in a house and no teachers, and we'd cook our food on a coal range like with wood
Man,
fire.
that's crazy. Everybody should go to
And so
school like that.
yeah, everybody should, but for me it was amazing to realize like these teachers, they live out there, they do this for fun, they get paid, like they don't have to see a city ever. And I was
Mm.
like, okay, this exists, like this is good. And yeah, so it's like every time I've had a catalyst, I've just had to surrender and watch things change. And what it's interesting to like watch how like I can communicate with like non-physical beings, and then receive the communication either through my thoughts my feelings or my experience, you know? So yeah, it's
Now is
like
that
just
is that now is that something that you do every day, every week, something that is part of your routine to make
yeah, I would say
connection?
it's constant. Yeah, like it didn't start being constant until maybe like 2020, 2018 or something.
Mm,
Because there was I can remember like how I would just keep ignoring certain things, you know? And if I kept ignoring things for too long, then there would be like a big blow up in my reality, you know? And it really all happened a year ago. Everything blew up. Like I was in this amazing relationship. I'd never been happier in my life. Like, I mean, wow, it was just the best thing ever. And it just blew up about a year ago at the end of 2023. And it took me a long time to sleep again. It took me a long time to get motivated to do anything again. And so I just went straight to Hawaii, got to see my best friend, work with my uncle doing some construction for a couple months. That's when I talked to you. And then see my best friend again on Molokai for a month. Went to Portugal and the Azores with my friend Mario, and then Nepal. And I came back to Australia. I just lived on the beach for a couple months with a friend, drinking coconuts and chilling out. And then I moved up north, and I've been working a full-time job for 5 months or something. And it's so cool, man, to like interact with all these people that just appreciate me so much, and I'm just like showing up and being love and sharing love and being diligent. And it's just so interesting to watch, you know, like so many more things happening in my reality that I haven't interacted with before, and how interconnected the community is in these small towns. And yeah, it's pretty interesting
wow,
time for sure to be able to interact with anything in any situation, and just be grateful for all of it, you know. Yeah.
wow. So given the it's a little bit different talking to someone like you than most of the people I've talked to, not to take away anything from anybody. That's not what I'm talking about. It's a whole different perspective. It's a two, three generations behind, technically, right? Um, get I would imagine that your perspective and those like you in that, let's just say, age group that's starting to surface are starting to mingle, let's say, with my generations in these circles, have these conversations, etc. I would imagine your perspective is totally different than someone like me. And I'm talking about in terms, let's say, of the external, of the worldwide movie script, of the politics and the earthquakes and the fires and the wars and blah, blah, blah. And so I would like to hear what your take is on that. Not so much what's going on with it, what is it, but does the effect it does or doesn't have on you? And secondly, the narratives, you might say, the narratives of the light worker circles to include not how we got here, but why we're here. People talk about purposes and they talk about missions and we got to save the earth. And, like, what's your take on the external noise, be it that of distraction and chaos, or be it of let's just say fluffy love and light type things. Do 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 either one of them sway you more than the other, or do you kind of look at them in the same category?
It's interesting. Yeah, like I guess I just see that the light uses everything for the benefit of all, you know. And
Hmm.
so like I learned a lot through my pain and, you know, dark nights of the soul and everything, but really it just brings you back to, you know, being closer or more connected with your interconnectedness with everything. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I guess I just like it's interesting. I just like see what information comes to me, and I just see it as God, you know, bringing me information about someone's talking about this or that, you know. And I don't really look for information. I just see what comes. And yeah, but I think the funnest things for me are like at the moment, because I'm up near Port Douglas, there's so many tourists, and also we call them backpackers, like people from foreign countries. Lots of people from Europe and South America come and work in Australia for a year or two. And I just find
Hmm.
myself around people that I haven't met. And all of a sudden we're talking about the cosmos and ascension and aliens. And I'm just like telling them, yeah, it's all good. Like, even like the planet's been in this shit show for way too long, and we've got all this extraterrestrial family, and we share DNA with them, and they're all coming into hell, and it's all good. We just got to be, good, loving beings in all our actions and all our thoughts, and not be hard on ourselves, and just start saying stuff. And it's so interesting to watch how people are so receptive to it now. Whereas like a
Mm,
few years ago, I maybe wouldn't talk about this stuff. I wouldn't
mm,
be in this environment, or people wouldn't be receptive to it at all. And now it's like people like the truth of all these spiritual truths are all out there. Some of it's all a bit, mumbled up and jumbled up and hard for people to see clearly, what's the simplest truths. But yeah, when people can hear it in a way that's, coming from our own colloquial language, and also from our own, from our own time or our own generation or something, it's like things click. And I really enjoy those interactions, because it's like a lot of the time it's just in my head, and then when I'm saying it and people are receptive to it, it's like the whole energy shifts.
wow. So do you, I mean, I would say a strong number of people from my own observation experience, even in myself up until last year, um, seem to be awakened and at the same time kind of have a personal um, directive. Like you're going to do this and you need to go do a podcast, or you need to go do this, or you need to create this. And it has been a big part of that development. But talking to you, I just wonder, talking to you, do you even spend any time, uh, let's just say, of any, I don't want to say majority of the time, but like in other words, I just don't get the impression that you spend a lot of time even concerning yourself, first of all, with the worldwide script and the stage and the actor, the play that's happening. And secondly, even of the narratives that come out of the Lightworker and Starseed circles. To me, it sounds like you're just more rooted in what you're doing every day, like being present.
Yeah, yeah, and like I have like big ideas and projects and things I want to do, and so that's where my mind goes. And
Mm,
then when other information comes in, it's like, oh, like now we have the technology that can help us do that, but I don't have to worry about that, figuring that part out. Or someone will say like, oh, this is turning to shit over here, and I'm like, oh, great, that can fall apart even faster, and the solution will come quicker, like things like that. But yeah, I can spend a lot of time thinking about, my own dreams, and how like, we can get people together, and like, because everything's in this divine kind of timing where you have to synchronize with, the people that you wish to collaborate and co-create with. But at the
yeah.
same time, it's like, it's a methodical thing where you each kind of take steps, and we come together once we've, taken enough steps or something. And so, my mind can be pretty active, and that's why I love my practices of like qigong and breath work, swimming, going to the gym, and just like, really getting into the body to like, because it's like all that mental energy, you can channel it into
Hmm.
expanding the body, and then when the body's expanded and more vitalized, you have energy to do more of the things that you've, thought about or conceived. Yeah.
You know, when I started this new platform or this new podcast and retired the old one, uh, there's certain things that I still don't understand at all. I think it goes to creating in a different space now, be it a podcast or be it like what you're doing or whatever. Um, but there were certain things that I felt like I didn't want to talk about anymore. Um, I'm tired of it. You know, it's relevant, but there's something else going on here. There's something new happening. It's almost weird. And one of those would be like for instance, we've got to do this. We need to do that. It's a life or death scenario. I think the reason that it kind of turns me off now is because it's too dominant of the human perception or stand alone on the human perception. In other words, my soul's coming in and going, you know what, man, you don't need to be taking that stuff so serious. That's not even real. You know, like you were talking about earlier, this opportunity or these incarnations or this incarnation that we have and share today. It, it's almost like, you know, we woke up and went too far and we're missing the point. You know, the point is, I mean, if you're out there charging a hill or you're out there with a bullhorn telling everybody about disclosure, that you're missing the actual, you know, reason we're here, which is to fully immerse ourselves in the experience without distraction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one of my best friends who I would call, my spiritual teacher at the same time, Juan. It would be cool to see you get him on the show, man. This guy, like,
We do.
you
Let's do
probably
it,
have
man.
mutual friends. He just taps into the most beautiful information, and yeah, he
Where's he
tells me,
from?
one of the he's from Colombia, but he lives between Brazil and Florida most of the
Mm,
time, and
mm.
um yeah, he tells me one of the most important things we can do is just be a good human, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And it's so true, like I watch myself, like people just being so appreciative of me doing the simplest things that of
yeah.
course I want to do. And like I said, my parents aren't spiritual people, but they've been together since they were teenagers and they never argued, and they were always so like, like drilling into us in a soft, gentle way, like treat others how you want to be treated, and only say things if don't say anything if you don't have something nice to say.
Yeah.
And that's so true, and that's what Jesus said too. And it makes life so simple when you just do that. And yeah, I think I was gonna say something else about yeah, just I think you were talking about just being and doing the simple things, and how like yeah, everything just becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, and all that external information. What were you saying about external information and things becoming more
Well, I mean,
simplified?
okay, so it's like, you know, I mean, I did that show for so long. And you know, even if you go back to like your thing, you know, like the last 8 years, the level of information and the access to things, okay, energies is increasing each and every day. So there's certain things that in 2012 or 13 or 14 or 15 that were so significant at the time, but they're not anymore. They're a kind of like a memory. They don't have the context that they had anymore. And it's not just the boogeyman stuff. It's, you know, like overreaching or going too far with, like, I'll use myself, with my identity of my connections of a past life or of what multidimensional aspects commune with me or a skill that I picked up or a prophecy that in other words, it's like everything's getting erased. And what you're left with is, to me, it feels, and I've said this for a couple of years, for me anyway, almost like a lucid dream. It's like a lucid dream atmosphere, and in a lucid dream atmosphere for me, and I have a lot of them. Uh, there's nothing, there is no context, but what I'm smelling, what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, everything here local. It's not like I'm having a lucid dream, and let's say I'm having a lucid dream and I'm talking to you on Zoom. That my mind goes off and thinking about China and thinking about Mars, and it doesn't happen. It's all very localized. And to me, that's kind of how it feels. And that's really not a great description, but there just seems to be less and less emphasis. I know for myself, uh, I know I can speak for my wife, you know, to a degree, and I can also speak to people that I've interacted with. Something's altered, and it's altering dramatically and very quickly. And I guess the byproduct or the outcome of it seems to be what you're talking about. These indigenous that you've run into, the way you're living your life, even working a conventional job for 5 months. It's like a very present um, lifestyle. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and God set me up with the coolest job, like I work on a 144-acre nature reserve that's also a resort. We feed wallabies, we feed birds, we walk along the beach. It's on the beach, we sweep the
Wow,
beach chairs down, have a
wow,
270-degree view of the ocean from this little hill at the point,
wow.
and I do coconut tours and harvest coconuts and tell people about coconuts, and it doesn't
So do
feel
you,
too much like work. I'm pretty energized at the end of the day, and I go and have a swim at the river.
yeah, I would imagine. Wow, wow.
Yeah,
And
but that's
so,
like that's like so many things like what you just said. Like for me, like when I was waking up, like there were times where I'd get so down when I would see like a chemtrail. I'd be like, oh man, we're powerless. Like we're just getting poisoned,
mm,
And then it got to a point, I don't know, it must have been 2019 or something, where I was like, fuck that. Like I'm gonna like program the chemtrails with monatomic gold and Ormus, and they're just gonna rain down and heal people and like things like that. Or I'm gonna sunbathe and I'm gonna also charge the sun while the sun's charging me,
mm,
like
mm,
these kinds of things to where like now, yeah, I don't have to worry about any of these external, influences on our reality. And what's really fun is like watching people appreciate that energy in me while I'm doing the same with them. Like one of my friends I go to the gym with, he's just like Hercules. Like I never met anyone else closer to Hercules on the planet. He's just massive muscle on muscle, and but he's like he carries that strength through so many areas of his life. Like he's a landscaper who can whippersnip with one hand for 8 hours in the day, and he can drive 30 hours nonstop if he needs to, and like all these other things. And so that blows me away. And that aspires me or inspires me to, aspire to higher levels of strength and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to watch it all happening because I'm seeing that in so many people as our resistance to things has dissipated or dropped, then other people's resistance to the truer or more pure information that we have is also dropped. And so we're all coming together and like what really makes sense here, our bodies, the planet's health. And then once we do those two things, everything opens up because we're not ignoring the important things that sustain life. And so we're able to expand more into our multidimensional, reality and experiences. Like I have dreams of flying and levitating and teaching other people how to fly and levitate. And I'm like walking around sometimes and feeling so light and strong and vibrant in my body that I start running and I'm like, when am I going to take off? It'll happen.
do you think, I don't even know if there's a difference, but do you feel that those dreams are, how would I say this? Um, a reality, part of your reality, parallel life or alternate universe or future or past, whatever the case is. Do you see them more than just a dream? There's no wrong answer. I'm just saying, do you do they carry weight with you? Like, I mean, do you see it as a synchronicity or a foreshadowing, or how do you look at those things?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like everything is real. Any thought you
Yeah,
have, anything is real, and just depends on how much you want to focus on it and allow it to stick around in your
yeah.
consciousness. Um, but yeah, I definitely some dreams will stick with me for my whole life, because
Mm,
there's so much depth and like and remembering for me within those dreams. And it's like either my higher self, my guides, my team, whatever you want to call it, is like showing me that for a reason. Like as a kid, I used to have these dreams where I was just like running, I love to run. And so I'd be like running through this beautiful field, kind of like almost like a Dr. Seuss book meets like, real life, magical land. And I'd be trying to run forward. And every time my foot hit the ground, I would float up into the air like 20 meters off the ground and float back down. And I would try to go forward and I would just float up and down. And it was like my guides were telling me, like, just slow down and get a higher perspective. You don't have to rush forward because I was like that as a kid. I wanted
mm.
to run. I wanted to play rugby. I wanted to just go, 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 go. And I look back on those dreams as funny. And then other ones that are just so beautiful, I'll never, never forget. It's like, and that's like for me, it's like it's like, we keep going forward and being diligent and good humans and, cultivating our energy and embodying our soul. All of these things are going to be possible, and it's just like little
No.
snippets of what's possible.
So, I mean, it probably goes without asking, but uh, I won't even set it up like that. But I'm just going to say, do you feel like in your lifetime, and when I say lifetime, I'm talking the human measurements, um, that you'll see the world, whatever, will see um, this hyper evolution occur where it's a common thing to see levitation. It's a common thing, teleportation, a reality that's so different that 99.99% of the things that we worry about aren't even on the table. You know what I mean? Do,
Yeah,
do
for
you
sure.
do you do you see that? I would assume you see that potential for yourself for sure, and obviously for some others, if not all others. But do you see that as uh, splitting off into, let's say, a higher dimension, as some people talk about the earth splitting and that type of thing, or do you see that we're doing this as a whole?
Yeah, I think that it's going to happen in ways that we can't really perceive. Like there's going to be events that we can't perceive, whether, as an example, most of us might have to go off planet for a couple of years while we re-terraform the whole planet, and we come back and there's a higher vibration and all these things are possible,
Hmm.
where most of us, some of us might stay. These are just like things that have come into my sphere that I see like, oh, that could happen. And I think that, like some of the indigenous people in Australia talk about how now there's a Pleiadian ship over Uluru that is bringing the baseline of the Schumann of the planet up to the highest it's
Hmm.
ever peaked at, is becoming the new base. And then the humans can, I guess, align with that new higher base frequency. And there's like
Hmm.
a grace period for people that aren't there yet to come up to this frequency.
Hmm.
And eventually, the people at the 7.83 or whatever the old base was will just kind of not be visible in our reality.
Yeah.
Um, but to me, these things, they make sense in different ways, but I don't like get attached to it happening in the way that I heard that it might happen.
Yeah, I got you.
Um, but I think one thing that's really becoming more obvious is that people aren't aging unless they decide to. Like there's lots of things involved with genetics and past experiences in this life. But what I see is like some really healthy people that could look 10 years younger than someone 30 years younger than them because they take care of their vessel.
Hmm.
And so we can live as long as we want. That's what God tells me, is that these bodies are these magical machines that don't ever have to die, and it can be immortal just like our soul, because they're made of our soul.
The same. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, like the body's consciousness has really come online now. Like it's getting louder and louder, if not to have an equal or greater voice than the rest of the multidimensionality. We think of the multidimensionality in our aspects that are galactic and elemental and ancient and of the lineage that we come from. But it's also here in this body, and not just the body collective, but the mental body, the emotional body, and that type of thing. The human part. It's crazy because it, it's like uh, ground zero. I mean, it all happened almost like we're like, oh, really? Like mine my own field of energy, um, follow the yellow brick road, follow the signs, kind of like what you talk about, in the way your life is unfolded. It's a bit strange, but I would imagine that obviously being in an environment like that you're in now, it's a lot easier to be um, collaborating, you might say, with these external energies. You know what I mean? It's a softer kind of um, uh, experience because you don't have the level of distraction or distortion you might have, like say in New York City. You know, when you were talking about New York City. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it's just do you feel like it's changing very rapidly as opposed to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago? Do you see a market difference? Is there something that's very striking to you that just says, "Oh wow, we're really in this now"?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I felt at different points where it's like, you go into the future and you experience it as though it's already happened. Um, but I
Mm,
think for
mm,
me, like with some of the stuff I went through last year, and I read this book called Conversations with God, and I know a lot of people older than
no
me have
doubt.
read it and stuff. But for me, that just like did it for me. Like reading this book, it just reprogrammed all my subconscious and helped me see all like the real truths really clearly, and and yeah, it's like now that I'm there, it's like I see everything's already done. I don't have any worries about, the highest outcome of things. And when I do notice myself thinking too much or trying to figure things out, I'm just like really quick to snap myself out of it. And I think what I notice with people in my generation that have been awake for some time is that in the last couple of years, we've had to just kind of like drop our focus on our kind of like gifts that we've experienced already or that we know are innate, and just focus on the areas that we've needed to grow so that we can actually harness these gifts and create more of a positive impact in the external reality. And so
Yeah.
it's really beautiful to watch that happen for me, and then to talk with my friends around the world and hear about like this magical, beautiful things of them meeting the right people and going to the right places, and they've got their dream life happening in so many ways, and they're just like they're busy, too busy and grateful to worry about anything, to where it's like everything's coming together. Just got to focus on what's in front of me, and then all these other things are just appearing on divine timing as we didn't quite expect it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting to think more and more and more that the downloads that people receive, the prophecy or the intel isn't so much about what's going to happen, but what's happening.
Hmm.
Like it's not like, oh, this came in and the pyramids are going to light up, or or the solar flash, whatever it is, it's actually happening, right? Like we're basically channeling or verbalizing or delivering or sharing what's actually happening. Like there's no fight here. There's no fight.
Hmm.
The fight's falling away. Like the false flag frequency is falling away. Like the distortion and illusion doesn't stick anymore. The bullshit and this and that, right? It's um like for instance, like someone like you, I would think, I mean, how many times in a day or a week or a month do you even go think about ascension? Like, is it even necessary? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like because if you do that, or and I mean, this is a question for you. It would just didn't seem to fit as I'm talking to you. It would like take away from what you're doing functionally every day, which is actually living, uh, openly and embracing what comes.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's also interconnected. It's like every breath, every movement, every choice, every action is taking us to that place where everybody experiencing heaven on earth and
Mm,
gratitude and love all day, every day. And so to me, I just like see it as this like grandiose play, and where we know what's coming and we're bringing it, and we're experiencing parts of it all at the same time. And it's just so beautiful for me to watch people becoming more and more receptive to it. Like
mm.
my family used to think I was absolutely nuts, and it was like proper traumatic for my mother because she loves me so much. She told me like last year at some point, she's like, "Oh, when friends ask me about you, I just say, oh, Henry's just being a hippie somewhere, in the world."
Well,
Like
it's an easy way to it's an easy out, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and now it's like it's easier. There's no resistance from me in terms of how they choose to live.
yeah,
Whereas like when I was first awakened and I saw my family again, after being in Mexico and Central America for half a year or so, I met them in Europe for like a family holiday, and I felt sick for 2 weeks. Like not sick physically, but like I just felt sick because I was like, how can I interact with these people? I don't drink alcohol anymore. I don't know how to talk about that stuff anymore. And I loved my family my whole life. Like, what's going
that's
on? And now it's like all of that resistance has just disappeared. And I
yeah,
appreciate them all for just their
yeah,
uniqueness, their love. And it's amazing. Yeah.
yeah. That's a good description. People talk about, and of course the labels too, right? They're falling away. But we still have to try to explain it, right? But I mean, like people talk about going from 5D to 3D situations. Like you're
Hmm.
in this high frequency band, and then you go over here, and you got to act the old normal, and it's like um, friction. It's agitating. It makes you sick for 2 weeks, like it did with you. But yeah, I think that's another part of it too, is where we're now able to go into these situations and we don't have the angst and the anxiousness and really the judgment. We're able to see things for what they really are, and not from a hierarchical or superiority point of view, but just from an expanded awareness. We don't have to explain as much, it seems like, either. We
Hmm.
just kind of let things kind of flow. Yeah, it's trippy, man. It's trippy. The speed that this is occurring, and really, you can't pick up. You can't go on X and read about it. You can't go on the news, obviously, and read about it. You can't see a movie that really captures it. It's so fresh that the only way I can even get a beat on it is to have a conversation like this about what's happening right now. Like, what is this? What is this exactly? But it's a very, very different dialogue now. It's a very different set of circumstances, you might say, existence. It's just a different place, regardless of what is being presented out there. It's just something that's different. Yeah, it's almost like everything flipped upside down, story, but on the individual.
Nice. You were speaking, it was all slow motion, and then all of a sudden the last few words came in. It's all individual. But yeah,
I don't know,
it's
man. It's your energy, man. It's your. Hey, well, we should we should do this again. We should do this
yeah,
again. I think it'd be fun. Because you know, we did 4,000 shows, right, in the old platform, and I bet you 40 of the shows were people that ranged from like 9 years old to, let's say, even like 25, maybe 50, 60 shows. It just wasn't part. It wasn't that it wasn't there wasn't this overlap yet. And but one of the things that I noticed about the young people in those years, where people like me in my age group, say 45, even to 35, 40 and over, certainly 45 and over, there was a lot of um, discussion about aspects that had communicated through visitation and communion and downloads, that were galactic or that were elemental or that, angelic. What I found with the young people is when I would ask them, hey, do you have any guides like Merlin? Or they're they normally would say no, that they would just basically in their own way hear that voice and however they receive it. Um, and it's like a one voice. What's your experience? I know you mentioned the Lyrian, but are you basically, is it you and the universe having a conversation, so to speak, or are there emissaries that come to you or have come to you that kind of guide you?
Yeah, it's interesting for me. Like in my dreams, it'll be like I kind of see them as like angels, like these beings that
Mm,
show up. But in terms of like my day to day, just kind of like higher connection, I just see it as God. And to me, God is just source, the spirit that moves in and through all things. And I just kind of like the word God because it's so
yeah.
efficient and it's just one syllable. But yeah, like it could be other beings, that are also God, just not the source itself. And that's one thing I do need to and am working on more is like getting more like structured with my meditation routine and learning to communicate with these different densities of consciousness instead of just, oh, it's all God, and it's all good, which is fun and it works, but there's definitely a lot more depth and layers to learn to interact with, which hasn't really been my thing because I just love to go 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 and just like, I know God's communicating to me through the external reality because that's how I've navigated it most of my life through my
Mm,
experiences and interactions.
yeah. Well, man, I enjoyed it. Uh, behave yourself at the wedding tomorrow. Are they having a bachelor party tonight?
No, I missed that. That was last weekend on the
Oh,
North
that's good.
Island. Yeah, I'm
It's
glad.
probably a
I'm
good
glad it
thing.
didn't sound like my vibe.
Well, man, you take care. It was an honor having you here. I look forward to doing it again with you. I really enjoyed this. I'm sure people, when they get a wind of you, will. I mean, at least in the circles I've been in, like I said, and maybe there's more of this going on with the young people on TikTok or Instagram or other venues and platforms. But it does seem like that there is a overlap. There's a merging of across all generations, I guess you might say, that's coming to the surface. And so it's really been a pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, thanks so much, Todd. It's been fun, and
Mhm.
thank you so much for all you do. Like I enjoy sometimes at work, I can put on your podcast or different times. Last year while I was working, I'd listen to them, and I always appreciate your questions and your guests. It's
Mm.
awesome service. So thanks so much, Todd.
Thank you, man. You take care. All right. I'll see